All right, hello. It's Tyler Bryden here. I hope everything is going well. It's been another crazy week in innovation in generative AI, and we've got another sort of demo, a little bit of a breakthrough that is catching the internet by storm a little bit, and you may have come across it. It is an interview with Joe Rogan and Steve Jobs, and this was created using voice synthesis. Wow. And basically they took a data set of a data set of a bunch of Steve Jobs talks online and everything that has been sort of gathered. And then they used GPT-3, so OpenAI's GPT-3 to create the text and then produced this interview. And I'll just play a second of it.
This podcast is brought to you by Play.
Let's talk about some shit, all right?
All right.
So,
combined. Those things all came from the subcontinent, and they're simply the foundation of what's made our society what it is. I view that stuff as much more important than, philosophy as it is classically understood. There were two things that were really interesting about what was accomplished and what happened on the Indian subcontinent. One of them is the...
So, it does sound a little bit like he's sort of preaching to an entire crowd. And there's lots of articles about the small sort of glitches and everything that are part of this interview. But overall, this has been, a pretty convincing demo of the technology that is available. And when you click through, and I've got this link open up, but I'll just open it up one more time, you end up at Play.ht, which has been around since 2016. It started out as basically how can you take text articles and convert them to speech. And you can see that, they've got some really good traction. They've got some of the use case, some pretty big customers of all teams and sizes, and then sort of claim that they have the best text-to-speech AI voices, as well as AI voices in every language and accent around the world. And so people might be coming across this and thinking this is absolutely astounding. This is a complete breakthrough. But voice synthesis, and I got it right that time, has been around for quite a while and continues to improve. And I think, I just wanted to touch quickly on one of the first sort of really big, moments that I had seen, which was a company called Sonantic, which actually was formerly called Speak AI. So thank you for rebranding. Actually was acquired by Spotify. And they were the ones responsible for helping actor Val Kilmer reclaim his voice for the Top Gun movie. So, he had a really, a really terrible sort of sickness where he was unable to then basically speak. And in this instance, they actually took recordings from Val Kilmer throughout his life and then were able to generate it. So in those moments in Top Gun, from my understanding, he's not actually speaking. They're using Sonantic's sort of voice-to-text or text-to-voice synthesis to generate what's being said. So if you have seen that movie and you didn't know that, super, super fascinating. And I think, we're getting better and better at, creating these voices. And I'll just play this for a second here.
Deepest dreams and ideas with the world. When we think of the most talented, creative people, they speak to us in a unique way.
So, people, again, maybe argue about perfection and all that, but overall, this is pretty wild sort of quality that is possible. And many people sort of reported their experience of this interview, of this podcast, was that if they hadn't been informed that it was, first of all, if they didn't know it was Steve Jobs, and that he's no longer here, and they hadn't been informed that this was AI generated, it's relatively convincing. And in that case, that makes this a little bit of a terrifying example of the possible outcomes and paths we're going with generative AI and AI generated voices. And so I think a lot of people sort of questioning the legal can you take Steve Jobs' voice, can you take Joe Rogan's voice without their consent, someone also posthumously, like someone who's no longer alive, and make them say things that they did not actually say, maybe would not consent to saying? These are sort of the Pandora's box that we are opening with these demos and, very, for better or not, haphazardly releasing these technology demos. And maybe haphazardly isn't the right word, because people are saying, hey, we're doing these are very smart people who are building this technology and releasing it, and they're sort of weighing the pros and the cons of it and saying that the benefit of this, or the creative potential, or the potential is outweighs the possible negative consequences. And now we are very early in the stage for that hypothesis to be played out as true or not. And I think, maybe the way that they're weighting the pros that are possible may be based out of, I would say, self-interest. And so that analysis or that equation doesn't really factor in the good of humanity and the rest of the world. Either way, this is not stopping. This is going to continue. This will only get better. This already has spurred, a ton of interest, and you can see sort of a couple of responses: fake, terrifying, people talking about insane, some people saying that it's really, good. And I think I just pulled up, basically a bunch of articles. So as always, I'll share those resources for you. I want to see there was one that was nice that had a couple responses from tweets here. Let me see if I can get it quick. Nope. Beautiful. Okay, here we go. Beautiful. So interview created. Yeah, so that talked about the biography part, and then sort of the AI generated voice, so the consent idea. And then Suhail here, people who love technology generally have maybe a little bit more of an affinity towards liking this and not necessarily considering or, thinking of the negative side of this. So I think we're all, when you're not maybe a famous person with big data sets of voice online, you might think that this is, okay, this doesn't really impact me that much. But, I think I've even, through my lens, I'm creating YouTube videos on a constant basis. I have, almost 200 videos that are being produced. No one really has the reason to try to target me specifically. But, as we look at, for example, say, sort of like spam calls from, like people who are trying to take money at scale, they're doing it at scale. So if you could quickly identify someone, find data sets of talking that they have online, clone their voice, and then use that to create fake phone calls or things like that. Like there are lots of ways, and maybe that seems too of a much of a down path that I'm on there, but that's not that out of the realm of the possibility here as this technology gets closer and closer. And there are other examples of this. One of the companies that I love is a company called Descript, and they bought a company called Lyrebird, and Lyrebird was a company out of Montreal in AI. And if you haven't come across this, they are basically able to take a small sample, not even that much of your voice. You can upload it, and then it will clone your voice. So, their use case here is that you can basically, if you make a mistake when you're recording, you can basically edit it and fill it in with a clone voice so that you can easily make a perfect recording without having to go back and record it. And maybe that isn't even possible. So this is a pretty practical use case, but what people are doing are chaining this up with a bunch of other things. And I'll pull up one example of this, which is Synthesiza video. Here we go. Beautiful. I'm going to pull this up on a second in the screen. So then what people are doing are chaining together sort of mix of, so what I've seen is clone voice, GPT-3, and then Synthesiza to create like artificial intelligence avatars that then can speak. And we can see that this is already being adopted by big companies, 12,000 companies of all sizes, and that the ramifications of that. And I think it speaks to the easy chaining of multiple generative AI technologies together to create outputs that are personalized, unique, at scale. And in that process, a lot of questions sort of emerge. So I wanted to talk about this here today. I've got it shared. Take a look. They're now, this is just one podcast that they're doing. They're apparently doing episode every week. So the one that is trending right now or is leading is a conversation between Buddha and Einstein. And we can see that there are other requests. So go make a request, see if you can get it in, and continue to follow them because it's, I'm sure as they release more, and if they follow this sort of demand through what people are actually interested in, I think this will continue to spread, continue to grow, and the knowledge the knowledge of these technologies will continue to sort of percolate or perpetrate through the more mainstream world. As if I'm speaking about this, or if you're reading this, you're most likely maybe a little bit of an early adopter of these technologies, or following more closely than maybe most of the people in the world. But I think that's going to change relatively soon with the proliferation of all these technologies. So I hope this was interesting to you. It was to me, and I'm glad I got a chance to cover it. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. This has been Tyler Bryden. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.